Hi, my name is Trip Durham, and I handle public address for Duke football and Duke men's basketball. And you're watching and listening to PAA Game Day.
Please welcome the host of PAA Game Day and a public address announcer for Syracuse University and Colgate University, as well as the New York State Public High School Athletic Association for numerous championships, Tom Winiecki.
So welcome back, everybody. Great to have you back with us for another episode of PAA Game Day, the show where we pull back the curtain on the voices that you hear at the game, the ones that call the big moments and keep everything moving, but who almost never get the spotlight themselves. Well, today, we've got another good one. We're joined by the public address announcer at one of the most iconic, loudest, most goosebump-inducing venues in all of American sports. We're talking Duke University's Cameron Indoor Stadium. So welcome to the show today, the public address announcer for Duke basketball, Trip Durham. Trip, we know you've got a busy schedule, so we really appreciate the fact that you're agreed to spend some time with us, and it goes without saying, sir, we are really excited to have you with us today.
Well, Tom, I appreciate the invitation, and with an intro like that, I sort of wish there was a game tonight. I'm fired up with goosebumps, just ready to get back into the building, so
All right.
Thanks for allowing me to live somewhat vicariously through the calendar, I guess.
Well, I'm glad I could help. All right, sir, let's dive right in. You told me that you grew up in North Carolina, a self-proclaimed child of the Atlantic Coast Conference. So set the scene for us. What was it like growing up in a North Carolina Tar Heel household?
We have an embarrassment of college riches in this state. And where we are in Burlington, North Carolina, we are in between the Triad and the Triangle.
Yeah.
So in between Wake Forest and then the other big three of the ACC. And I remember walking into the den when I was maybe 5 or 6 years old, and television just did not broadcast college basketball games on a regular basis. But a North Carolina basketball game was on TV, and my dad, having attended University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, he was a Tar Heel, and we all know that by nature the offspring become fans of that team. And he threw his shoe at the television because he was upset with a call. And I remember thinking to myself, this must be a pretty big deal. So I became a fan of the ACC. It entered my aura at that point. And I'm 57 and a half years at the time of this conversation. And I've been an ACC fan for 50 and a half of those years.
Okay,
So
all right.
it's just part of the DNA, which is awesome.
It certainly sounds like it. Now, you told me a couple stories describing what it was like. One about you maybe somewhat sort of pretending to be sick to stay home to watch the ACC tournament, or when or when the teacher rolled the television into the classroom.
Yeah, it was a little bit of both.
Mhm.
Part of the iconic nature of ACC basketball in this part of the state is how we all used to be a part of the tournament in March, even from our high school classrooms. The media cart, the teacher would always spend quarterfinal Friday with us in the class from 12 until 3 watching the first game of the tournament. It's just what you did. I think it was actually baked into their lesson plans, oddly enough. But I do remember one time in which I wasn't quite sure if that particular teacher was going to bring the television into the room. So I feigned illness. I had a stomachache that day and stayed at home and watched all 4 games of the quarterfinals. And I don't think I've missed an academic beat because of that. I still would have had a low SAT score one way or another. So it all works out in the end.
Well, glad to hear that it all worked out for you. All right, so let's jump ahead a little bit. You started to tell me a little bit beforehand about a good story about your younger brother, Josh. He spent some time working at the Burlington Athletic Stadium with the then Cleveland Indians Rookie League team. And there's a great story about something that he said and wanted to do, and then your advice back to him. Take us back to that conversation and try to describe what was going through your brother's mind at the time.
I know my two brothers well enough at this point, Tom. I still don't know what's going through their minds. So I don't know that we can be as optimistic to know exactly. The minor league baseball club, the Burlington Indians, they were the rookie league affiliate for the Cleveland Indians. And for a little bit of context, Jim Thome got his start within the Cleveland organization here in Burlington.
Oh,
And so we
really?
were summer league, Appalachian League,
Yeah.
and there was a short season. So it was June to August, and I was the clubhouse manager for the first 3 years of my college summers. And then the last 2 years, I sort of moved into the front office to help out. My middle brother, Josh, said he wanted a part-time job. He loved baseball. And so they, being the general manager and the assistant GM, hired him to be part of the cleanup crew.
Okay.
When I say be part of the cleanup crew, there might have been like 4 people in the ballpark cleaning up afterwards, right? Small time operation.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't like picking up popcorn boxes. He didn't like the drinks with the, liquid still in the bottom. And he wanted to quit after a couple of games. And he was just going to leave a note on the general manager's door and say, I'm out. Well, that was the last year I think I was the clubhouse manager. So I'm in the ballpark late at night. And I told him, I said, no, you have to do this face to face. If you're going to walk, you need to be man enough, or try to be man enough at that age, to go and say why you're leaving. And he did. And I do think that has resonated with him over the years. And Tom, you know as well as anybody, and those that are watching and listening, it's all about the high road. Stay on the high road as long as you can, especially in this sports life. Because the older you get, the smaller the sports world becomes.
Mm-hmm.
And you never want to burn a bridge. The same people you see on the way up are the same ones you see on the way down.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping he's carried that lesson with him for a while.
Yeah. And I'm sure if you were to talk to him, or maybe if I talked to him, maybe not you, but if I talked to him, he would probably agree with what you have to say. Now, let's jump ahead a little bit further. Today, you run your own consulting business, 2D Consulting. Now, for folks that aren't aware, what is 2D Consulting and how did it all get off the ground?
I own this story. I have been fired 3 times in my life, and it's never been because of job performance. It's been because of transition and management above my head. And it got to the point in 2009 that I just got tired of being fired. So my wife and I decided, look, if I find a job, then we have to move and you got to find a job, or we can stay where our roots are and then I'll figure out what to do. And thankfully, I had enough experience, not only in professional sports, but specifically college athletics, that I gave a pretty good start, I thought, in opening up my own deal. 2D Consulting, there are 2 Durhams, my wife and I, so that's sort of the 2 and the D.
Oh, okay.
But then also, if you think about it in terms of the vernacular of college athletics, if you flip the letters or flip the characters, it's D2, which is short for Division II. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I had done a little bit of informal consulting, friendship building with a lot of smaller schools. Mm-hmm. So I launched 2D Consulting on the 4th of May in 2010. And thankfully, this upcoming May, I get my learner's permit. I'm able to drive, which is great. I'll turn 16 years old and pretty happy with the way that it's transpired. It's in 2 halves. One is external relations assessment, and then the other half is project management. You and I are speaking just off of the heels of the ACC football championship in Charlotte. Mm-hmm. And one of my projects is I am the coordinator of all 17 mascots for the ACC football championship. And then when basketball rolls around, the 18 schools for both the men's tournament and the women's tournament. And that's an absolute blast. They pay me. They shouldn't. I do it for free. But edit that part out. Do not tell the ACC I would do it for free.
It's our secret. But how do you organize 17 or 18 mascots? How do you do that?
There's a lot of collaboration. There's a travel partner that helps them get from point A into the championship city. There is a couple of partners within the ACC office that assist with hotel and a couple of programmatic plans. But then for the most part, when the kids are on the ground, when the mascots are on the ground, It's all about moving from point A to point B, getting them fed, making sure that we're at the
Okay.
right school, the right hospital at the right time, and it's a lot of fun.
Now, on a side note, I'm in Central New York. Syracuse University is right down the road, and Otto the Orange is only seen at one place at a time. So
That
if
is
the
correct.
football team is at Duke and Otto is there, he's not at any other venue going on at the same time. Is that the same for these other mascots in the ACC?
It is, and let's think about it from a football standpoint. When we are out in the community on Saturday game day,
Yeah.
and one of the schools has a tailgate in another part of the community, and they want their mascot to stop by,
Mhm.
we have to coordinate to make sure that we don't have 2 Blue Devils in the same place at the same time, because that would look a little odd,
That
wouldn't
that
it?
that that would be a little questionable, I would.
Sure.
All right, so this sounds like a good time to take a break, and when we return, I'll ask Trip about all the different hats that he's worn and about getting the job at Duke, all the while that his father is still that diehard Tar Heel fan. So stay tuned.
www.publicaddressannouncer.org.
So here we are, back with Trip Durham from Duke University. So Trip, you've worn many hats in the sports world. Public address, play-by-play, game day operations. You've been everywhere. Share with us some of those hats that you've worn and the jobs that it entailed.
Thankfully, I have had a rich life in this sports life. And that started in minor league baseball that we talked about before the break. That was sort of the foundation. And through that, thankfully, whether strategically or just dumb luck, I've had the opportunity to work in several different environments over the years. So much so that when I was fired for that second time, I leaned on a colleague just for some part time work. He was the manager of a Coliseum complex. And he said, "You can show up at 4 in the morning, unlock the door for the ice hockey leagues that like to practice at 4:30 in the morning. And in between practices, I'll teach you how to drive the Zamboni." So
Okay.
through life, Tom, and I think a lot of people that are listening or watching would think about their lives in the same way. If you're able to build a structure of a lot of horizontal
Yeah.
skills, that in time when you really need to lean all of them for that one vertical opportunity, hopefully you have them. I've traveled internationally to help out on some sport projects.
Yeah.
Dave Raymond, the original Philly fanatic, he and I launched or co-launched an event at Steamboat Springs for mascots for a couple of years.
Okay.
If it's in the sports space and if it seems to make sense, I've thought, well, maybe this is something that'll be useful for me and help give me a booster shot all at the same time.
Yeah. Now, some of those places I found that you worked at, Ernie Shore Field in Winston-Salem, Virginia, University Hall, and John Paul Jones Arena. Practically every venue in the Southern, South Atlantic, and Big South Conference, professional arenas in the South. But through all of that and all those places you have worked, it seemed like there was always one place that you had circled in your heart, and that was Duke.
I think a lot of us, Tom, we really took note of Duke in the late 80s and certainly the early 90s with the back-to-back championships.
Yeah.
And while I don't know that I ever aspire to find something that is quasi full-time in public address, I certainly had that campus on my radar that if something ever came about. And, I knew that that chance was going to be probably 1 in a million because
Yeah.
they had a public address announcer for men's basketball, Dr. Art Chandler,
Yeah.
that had been in place for 40 years
Yeah.
before I got the ask. And I was fortunate by which I had a chance to audition for football for Duke. They were listening to my tape, as it were, when the volleyball coach walked by the office. She said, if he's thinking about football, might he have the opportunity to consider handling volleyball public address?
Okay. All right.
And volleyball plays in Cameron.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I could put my sound in that building, and I don't mean to sound egotistical
No,
about it, it's just thinking about the
no,
opportunity.
I know exactly where you're going.
If I can put my sound in that building, then if there is an opportunity that comes about, if I prove myself at
Hmm.
football and I get to be a bit of a known entity for that building, then maybe they'll ask. And sure enough, in July of 2010, a couple of months after the men's team won in Indianapolis, I was called into a Duke office. The gentleman asked me to sit in that chair over there, and that chair happened to be a bench chair from Indianapolis from a couple of months ago, and asked if I wanted to handle public address for the men because Dr. Chandler was going to retire. And I think before the question came out of his mouth, I think I said yes. I don't think I jumped out of the chair, but I certainly said yes. And thankfully, it's been a really good partnership ever since.
It certainly has been, and part of all of this, you kind of alluded to it and touched it on the periphery a little bit, but it's relationships and connections to make throughout the industry, and you never know who's listening. Perfect example is your one audition tape, and the volleyball coach walks by.
Right.
But if you could talk to the people watching and listening today for a second and give them some advice as to how they can get the ball rolling for themselves to start to build those relationships.
One of the things, Tom, that I don't think a lot of folks talk about when it comes to public address is the skill that you have before you sit into the chair. And I don't mean the voice skill, because
Mhm.
a lot of folks think that, hey, I have this voice, I really want to go do it for such and such. But what's the portfolio and the experience that you're bringing with you? I think
Yes.
part of my value at Duke is that I have not only produced or co-produced college sporting events in my day, I've also hired the public address announcers. So when I am in my office at whatever location and I'm writing a script or a run of show, on a Monday devoid of any crowd noise, of any emotion for being out on that field or in that gym, I need to be writing, I need to be planning for what it is I want to have happen. And being a public address announcer for Duke, I understand what the marketing staff, what the ops team, what facilities, what they're trying to get after. And I can be a part of that. So if somebody can build a skill of prior knowledge, of prior experience, so that when they do sit in that chair, they get it, right? I think that helps. The other I often recommend is that the word networking needs to be jettisoned, needs to be thrown out, because networking to me is transactional.
Okay.
If you're building relationships and then you happen to be in the right place at the right time and people think of
Mhm.
you as a good egg because you've built a relationship with them, as opposed
Yeah.
to just knocking on a door at 2 in the morning, which I've got a story about that this show is way too short for that. Then if you're able to build that relationship, then folks will come calling and volunteer. Volunteer at your local parks and rec
Mhm.
for a softball tournament on Labor Day weekend just to get time in the chair,
Yes.
just to build a recommendation, build a relationship. So when that time comes, you got street cred.
Yes, exactly. Something to back up your request. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I love the when you first said networking, throw it out. I just wait a minute. Where is he going to go with this? But then when you talked about relationships, it makes perfect sense. You're dealing with human beings, and they have
Mhm.
to know that they can work with you, and they know exactly what they're getting. That's a
It's
great
just a
point.
matter of readjusting the proposition,
Yes,
and it's a
yes.
better proposition to build
Yeah,
relationships.
makes complete sense now. Now, I have to ask a bit of a different question. You get the job at Duke, first football, and then a few years later in Cameron for basketball. How did that go over with your Tar Heel loving father?
I think he was okay with it.
Yeah?
Unfortunately, we lost him about 3 years into the tenure,
Oh, I'm sorry.
but I would get a call after a game on the way home, and I'm about 32 and a half minutes from driveway to
Mhm.
driveway. And in my drive back, I would get a call, "Hey, I heard you on the TV tonight." So I think there was a level of pride.
Yes.
And I think I never gave him the other shade of blue as a Christmas present, but if I did, I'm sure that would have worn it with some buttons popping off of it.
I'm sure he would have. And as a father of adult children myself, I can imagine what your father would
Sure,
think. Yes.
sure.
Now, when you got the job at Duke, people started calling you the voice, but I
Yeah.
heard you're not exactly comfortable with that. Why is that?
No, I'm not, because if we think about it in terms of basketball, there are 9,314 other voices, 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 9,314 other voices in Cameron on a nightly basis.
Okay.
Mine just happens to be the one that says push to talk. And everybody else has a chance to be loud and make an impact within that building. Mine just happens to be amplified differently. So I'm one of the voices of Cameron Indoor for sure.
Very positive and humble way to look at that. I like that. Now, you started to tell me about a tradition at Duke, which started with a former player, Ala Abdelnaby, and that former PA announcer, Dr. Art Chandler. Can you explain what that tradition was? Paint the picture of how it fits into that pregame script and how it's designed to squeeze the most out of the fans pregame.
I mentioned the run of show earlier. I think Duke basketball, and this is not me being biased, I think this is me being objective because I've been in venues all over the country, and I watch what other folks do within the last 6 minutes of the pregame. Ala Abdelnaby, and I'd have to go back and look at the year. My guess is it would be somewhere around the 1986 time frame. He went to Dr. Chandler, who was the PA announcer, and he says, "Doc, we just need a little extra something before we come out of the locker room for the last time." And Dr. Chandler came up with, quite simply, 3 words: "Here comes Duke." And we know basketball teams go in and out of the locker room at stage times during the pregame. Duke will come out with 5:45 or so left on the pregame clock. The band will strike up a fight song. They come out, cheerleaders, flags ablazing, running down the sideline, and it's my job to cry out, "Here comes Duke." And it's the signal, right? It's the last thing. We're getting ready to get fired up. And then what Duke does afterwards, the marketing staff, they program 2 really neat pieces that lead into the zeros. And when you get to the zeros, the crowd is pitched. They know we're going to play basketball and we want to win tonight. They do a really good job. So Ala and Dr. Chandler, it's a tradition now that, gosh, is getting ready to be 30 years old or so, I guess.
That's right. Awesome. Yeah. Oh, wow. Now, all right, folks, on that, we'll take another quick break. And when we get back, I want to spend some extra time about another project the Trip is involved in, the Public Address Announcers Summit. So stay tuned. Announcing the Game is a free resource to public address announcers that take you through how to take your skills to the next level. A simple click on the sport gives you free access to a video that goes over terminology and rules specific to a lot of sports. So take a look. See if we can help you improve your skills. So here we are once again back with Trip Durham from Duke University. So Trip, let's talk about something that you created outside the walls of Cameron, the Public Address Announcers Summit. Now, from my understanding, this started pretty small, but now it's grown to a national event. You're getting folks from all over the country. How did this idea get started?
I appreciate you asking. I'm flattered. And you and Matt, you guys have been great cheerleaders for this. So thank you a ton. In October of 24, I was sitting at the Breakfast Nook table and I realized that I've been getting these calls over the years about folks within the state needing a public address announcer for this or for that. And did I have any recommendations? And I found myself more often than not saying, I really don't have any recommendations because I don't know that many people that I'm willing, again, sounds pretentious, don't mean it to be, that many people that I would want to stand up for and endorse. So I figured, well, let's try to solve that problem. Let's create a public address summit in North Carolina so that we get to know who's on the bench. March of 25 launched registration and got a couple that were trickling in from North Carolina. But the more that folks like Matt and colleagues within the state were promoting what this summit was going to be in July of 25, I was getting calls from other people in other states. So it quickly became a little bit more than just knowing who's on your bench in North Carolina. It's about how is it we can create some really cool educational propositions, programming pieces for other announcers. So in its first year, which was in 25, we had 26 announcers.
This is the first of its kind that I've seen as far as public address. We've got folks from all over the place, all different walks, college, professional, high school, hearing their stories, and even taking, borrowing some ideas that I may be able to incorporate into what I do with the Carolina Panthers.
just really, really cool to have a group of people from all different age ranges that we can actually talk to about our professions, and this has really been a highlight for my entire year.
To get everyone in this room, in this area, and start to establish a little bit of a networking community, I think is paramount.
Ladies and gentlemen.
One thing I'll take back home with me is just the variety of styles that people have.
And give it up for Manaka. Away go.
Attending this event is really well worth any PA announcer's time, no matter what level they're at.
We thank everyone for their attendance for the Public Address Summit of 2025. We hope to see you back here, right here, next year, as it will be bigger and better.
I am happy to launch, announce, whatever the right term may be, here on this show, that we are going to have a second annual in 2026. It will be in July once again. It will once again be in Burlington, North Carolina. And we are going to have, I think our registration is only going to be open to about 30 or 32 people.
Oh, really?
Well, there's a process within building the 2 days of programming. And the highlight is the showcase, which on Monday night, we all gathered together at Elon's Schar Center, the Elon University Schar Center.
Yeah.
They're great to be partners again in 2026. And we all have a chance to listen to one another, live mic, big building. And there are only but so many people that we can do that with before we find that we've been there for 7 hours still going through a showcase. So that's why we limit it to about 30 or 32. We learned in July of 25 that we've got a little bit of variance. We can up capacity a little bit, but unless we hear gangbusters, I think having 32 people is going to be the right number. And if we think about capacity, I know I'm droning on here. If we think about capacity, Cameron Indoor only has 9,314 seats. Cameron does not have 25,000 seats. So it makes it a little bit more, you're a little bit more interested in wanting to go because you know that only so many people can go.
Okay, yeah. Now, if somebody wants to sign up and try to be one of those 30-some people that attend, what can they expect if they go? What could a prospective announcer expect to see and get out of this summit?
Well, thank you again for asking. So on Sunday, we have a kickoff social dinner and the chance to really get to know one another. And what's really fun for me, back in July, I stood downstairs on the street, and our event at the restaurant was taking place upstairs. So I wanted to meet everyone on the street, welcome them. And I was still waiting on about 2 more people. And I opened up the door just to get a sip of water, and I listened to the upstairs. And it sounded like kids at summer camp who are getting together for their 15th reunion. Tom, they all made friends like that, which was amazing to hear that chatter, right?
Yes.
So Sunday is the kickoff and the reception. Monday is a full day of programming. It's roundtables, it's breakouts, it's different subject matter. Certainly lunch is involved, breakfast is involved. Then we have the big showcase on Monday night over at Elon. And then on Tuesday, a half day's worth of programming before everybody gets off and gets out. I am proud to quasi-announce, because it's really not going to be open for a lot of people listening or watching. We're actually going to have a high school public address camp the day before here in my county, in which the 7 high schools, their athletic directors who think that they've identified people that may have an interest in being a public address announcer, they'll have a chance to come to a couple of hour camp the day before. And it's going to be held at the same high school where I got my start when I was 14 or 15 years old. So this circle is going to come back around, and hopefully we're going to be able to teach, educate, influence the next generation, which would be great.
Oh, what a great idea for the high school folks. Maybe people watching or listening out there in different parts of the country may say, "Ooh, that's a good idea. Maybe I could start that where I am."
Absolutely. And if anybody has that idea, call me and let's see if I can help you just walk through it a little bit.
Terrific. Now, if if somebody's interested and somebody wants to register, how would they go about? Is it a lottery or is it first come, first serve, or how do you work
It's the latter, and what I'll
Mhm.
do is I'll officially launch the registration in March.
Yeah.
However, if folks want to drop me an email, they are more than happy to do that,
Mhm.
and we can use that as a placeholder.
Okay.
I'm certainly happy with doing that. I wanna make sure that we create the most engaging environment possible, and if that means that somebody's already ready to commit their time and their energy, then I'll commit my resources and promises to say, "Absolutely, you're in."
That sounds terrific. Now, after doing this for a year and you're planning the second year, what did you learn the first time through that
Mm.
you'll use to make the next one and future summits even better?
That's a really good question. We didn't have a lot of places where we dropped the ball or stepped
Mhm.
into a hole. There are some programmatic elements,
Okay.
not the title of a roundtable or the title of a
Yeah.
breakout, but there's just one or two. I'll give you an example: space, right? The place where we had our breakouts, they were great spaces, but because of the number of people, it got a little tight.
Mhm.
So it's a matter of letting a room breathe. So again, it's operational. I don't think so much programmatically,
Okay.
but
Okay.
we'll make a few adjustments.
All righty.
It's a great question, though. I hadn't really thought about it until just the time that you asked.
Well, I apologize if I put you on the spot there.
Oh, no, not at all.
All right. So, as we said at the beginning, Trip, we are thrilled that you're here today on our podcast. But I want to talk a little about your podcast, At the Hash Mark. Now, I listened to the first couple episodes, and I love listening to Leonard Hamilton from Miami and Mark Pope of Kentucky talk college basketball. But for folks who haven't found your podcast yet, well, first, folks, shame on you. But what does At the Hash Mark actually mean, and what's the show all about?
I can't find the right verb yet. Maybe you can help me. I wanted to take advantage. I wanted to leverage. I wanted to use the opportunity that I have in Cameron to exercise the opportunity to learn and to educate.
Mhm.
So it struck me one day while working in the yard in the spring that it might be really cool to learn about that visiting coach that stands about 3 feet away from me at the hash mark. So my position at the scorer's table is closer to the visiting bench than it is the home bench. And the hash mark, that coach's demarcation line, is literally right in front of me on the other side of the table. So the concept was, let's learn about them as people, with the through line obviously being basketball. So for your video folks, I keep my own score sheet, my own spot sheet for every game. And I'd write notes, almost like a diary, on the back of each one. And the idea was, okay, what are the personalities? What am I experiencing? What am I feeling? And the coaches themselves, a lot of them, you can just tell, are funny people, right? They're deep people. They've got good hearts. But when you're watching on television on a 2x2 screen on your phone, which is not really television, but you get the idea, you don't know who these people are. So I started working with all the comms directors with the schools that have come in over the
Yeah.
last 16 years to ask if their guy
Mhm.
might have an interest. Now, there are a couple of interesting flips in that, right? So Mark Pope didn't come in as the head coach at Kentucky. He was at another stop along the way.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So he was able to come, or he appeared, and I'm grateful that he
Mhm.
did. Leonard Hamilton obviously was at Florida State for the longest time. So he was certainly Florida State within the context of the at the hash mark. And
Mhm.
there are 16 coaches. Right now, as of this episode you and I are recording, I think I rolled out 6.
Okay.
Mike Young, Archie Miller, Leonard Hamilton, Todd Golden. And on deck this season, Jeff Capel,
Okay.
Thad Mata, Josh Pastner. And these conversations, Tom, are about their lives, and the
Mhm.
leadership lessons that I'm learning just visiting with them is fantastic.
Mhm.
And hopefully there'll be somebody that decides, from a leadership standpoint, they want to learn what Steve Forbes is thinking about when he's not coaching Wake on the
Yeah.
sidelines.
Okay. All righty. It sounds like a tremendously interesting and insightful podcast.
We've watched them pace the sidelines and fire up arenas. Now NCAA coaches get real about what fuels them: leadership, values, and the people who matter most. On November the 4th, We are at the hash mark throughout the season.
So the ironic thing is I didn't want to be a coach. I went to UVA to get my doctorate. I wanted to be a college professor. I was just going to help out with the basketball team. I had my career at UNC Wilmington, but I always thought if I wasn't in the NBA, then I wasn't going to do anything in basketball after college.
And I came in the house, my mother said to me, "Look, you need to always think before you speak." And then she said, "It's not important that everybody know what you're thinking." Now, what in the era that I came through, I knew what I was up against when I walked in the room.
Now, we'll finish with some questions that we ask all of our guests. First, that oh my gosh moment, that moment where something unbelievable happened, whether it be a Cameron or another venue that you work, where part of you wants to get up and scream and cheer, but the PA announcer inside says, "Okay, Trip, slow down, take a breath. What do we need to say?" Any of those for you?
Yeah, there's probably a dozen, if not 12 dozen. But one that comes to mind, the Shire family has what they've entitled a kid captain of the game in Cameron. And they align with the Duke Children's Hospital in order to identify who that kid captain is going to be. 2 years ago, if not 1 year, you know how we all get older, we lose a little inside of time. A kid captain came out and they had just finished treatment. And they were declared cancer-free. Duke had arranged to have this giant bell come out onto the floor. So during my read, unbeknownst to the fans, all of a sudden this giant bell comes coming out, and the child had a chance to ring the bell
because they were cancer-free. Yes,
cold chills thinking about it. And that's one of those moments in which you want to scream at the top of your lungs in support of this family. But you have to keep your pace, your tempo, your tenor.
Yeah.
But there lies within an opportunity as well is how can you take the script that was provided to you and then punch it up?
Yes.
Not rewrite it.
No, right.
Where's the word? Where's the pause? Where's the chance to really make it even more special?
Yes.
And to me, it's on the spot. That's the one that comes to mind.
I get chills myself just listening to you tell the story and picturing that situation on the floor. Oh my goodness. Now, unfortunately, we have to go to the opposite end of that extreme. Something that slips out of your, I know it's happened to me and all of us. It comes out of your mouth and you instantly say, "No, I hope nobody heard that," but I know they did. Any of those that still sticks out for you? And how do you bounce back?
Well, it's on to the next, right? Even in life, it's just on to the next.
Yes.
Part of my introduction into Cameron, I handled women's basketball public address for a couple of years. And Chelsea Gray, who is now with the Las Vegas WNBA squad, Chelsea had two other guards that she was complimented with, and they were fun to watch, great to watch. And every moment you're like in it. Well, Chelsea didn't shoot a particular shot. She was wide open. I think she had a buffer of about 16 feet right in her sweet spot, and she didn't shoot it. Well, I said, "Shoot it, Chelsea." When my finger was on the button.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, "Who is that?" "Oh, that's me coming through the speakers." And you can't walk it back because at that point it's out there, right? The horse is already at the first turn. He's not coming back to the gate.
Right.
And like I said, it's just on to the next. So what I do now is I'm always making sure that my left hand, which is where the console I push with the index finger, is always off the console, either in my lap or somewhere off to my torso where I know I am not going to trigger that button. It's my own safety valve.
Now, did that player talk with you about that afterwards? Did she hear it?
I don't know if Chelsea heard it. And Chelsea's always had this wider than wide smile and grin. So even if she did hear it during play, she probably would have looked over and laughed anyhow.
Probably. So you've pretty much done it all. We didn't even
not yet.
Well, we didn't even get a chance to talk about how you were asked to do JV football when you were in high school and working at collegiate venues and professional venues and all in between. If you had to give one piece of advice to a public address announcer out there, no matter the level, youth league all the way up, what would that one bit of Trip Durham wisdom be?
don't say no, because if you say no, they're going to ask somebody that says yes, and then they're not going to come back to you and ask you again. Because the person that says yes will ingratiate themselves, they'll build the relationship, and at that point, whoever it is that asked you the question has got what they need. And even if saying yes means that you're doing it for free, you're going to make peanuts doing it, you could be at a losing proposition. Now, granted, there are limits to saying yes.
True.
But if you say yes, you have a better chance of progressing. When I was asked to handle public address for JV football in high school, it was the athletic director that asked me. And as youth, we don't want to tell our elders no. So I said yes. Tom, I had no idea what the hell he was asking me to do. Public address? Sure, whatever you need. So I figured it out. And so if you say yes, even if you're not sure, figure it out. Just don't say no.
That's great. Simple, but direct and terrific advice for all of us, no matter where we are in our careers. Now, finally, Trip, after all the years, all the venues, all the games, what keeps you coming back to the mic? What still gets you fired up about prepping for that next game?
Two things, one more so than the other. Two things, it's the team that you're with. I aspire to be around certain people, and the people within the Atlantic Coast Conference or Duke, I aspire to be around those teammates and to be a part of that on a nightly basis. I love doing that. I don't care how bad of a day I've had. That's my lift. That's my booster shot at the end.
And now, basketball fans, the starting lineup for your Duke Blue Devils. Introducing a 6'8" freshman from Durham, Italy, number 7, Dame Sarr. A 6'9" freshman from Miami, Florida, number 12, Cameron Boozer. A 6'11" sophomore from Manassas, Virginia, number 21, Patrick Gumba II. A 6'6" sophomore from Fayetteville, North Carolina, number 3, Isaiah Evans. And the 6'5" junior from Harrisburg, North Carolina, number 1, Caleb Foster. Our Blue Devils are led in his 4th season by John Shires.
And then with Cameron, this is going to sound really goofy. It smells like an old gym. You walk into Cameron.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
The dust, the popcorn, even the hot dogs from 4 days ago, which are still lingering. It's and I get to wear a credential and walk in before everybody else to go smell that and to be part of that team.
And you get to sit right at courtside. Yeah,
how can you not be fired up for that?
I don't know. I guess we answered our own question there, sir. All right, I guess. Well, folks, that will wrap up another episode of PAA Game Day. A huge thank you to our guest, Trip Durham from Duke University. Trip, this was outstanding. Thank you again for taking some time to hang out with us.
We'll see what the Yelp ratings are before we call it outstanding. So it's all about the subject matter. And I think you somebody's got to interview you at some point. I know the barber never gets a haircut. The cobbler never has any shoes, but somebody needs to do this and you be the subject. Okay.
Well, it's somewhere down the road. Maybe we'll switch places someday. Maybe it's your summit. All right. So for all of you out there, thank you for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed today's episode, or even if there were parts that you didn't, please take a moment, leave us a review wherever you're listening or watching, because that feedback helps shape our future episodes. And in our next podcast, I'll be talking with PJ Kwong, a public address announcer for many international events, including figure skating and other events at the Olympic Games. And don't forget to share this show with others out there who may want to hear more about the voice that they hear, but they never get to know. So until next time, I'm Tom Winiecki, and I can't wait to hear you on the mic.